Hello and welcome to the Scientology Money Project with your host, Jeffrey Augustine. Today we're going to keep discussing Scientology and the children who were born into the fake Navy of Lafayette Ronald Hubbard. And I'm glad to have back with me returning guest, Jamie Mustard. Jamie, welcome to the show.
Hey, we're both casual today.
Yeah, we are. It's casual day. I have my NASA hat on. I was up at, I had to go to Antelope Valley yesterday, and I stopped at the Blackbird Air Park because, I've been going there forever. Jamie, I'm a tech guy. So I had to buy the NASA hat, but this is a B2. Now that's technology.
That's cool.
I love aviation models, and this thing is so stealthy. They have to put reflectors that pop up to get signal. Anyway,
how long has it been around?
The B2?
Yeah,
I forget what year they rolled it out. I used to, when I lived out in Antelope Valley, at least 30 years. Maybe someone in the comments can add. But I used to see it flying out there all the time. And the strangest thing, when it's in the air and it turns, it looks like it just looks like a slip of paper. When it turns, it's hard to see. But anyway, glad to have you on. What I wanted to do, we have Avant. Is it Avant Alice or Avante?
a friend of mine.
Oh, okay. Is it Avante Alice? Thank you for coming to see Jamie Insurance. Hello, Lupita. Welcome to the show. And we have SPTV Never Ends in Artology. Kelly, welcome, Kelly. Glad to have you here. And Bunny Melon. I like that name, Bunny Melon. I like the little dog. So look, I like that photo. Those glasses are cool. I like those frames. Power lies to paralyze. How true. Welcome to the show.
Paradise.
And we have my friend Mona, Fat Grammy. You know Fat Grammy, Jamie?
Yeah, I do.
She's deluxe. Fat Grammy deluxe. She knows how to flex. On Lafayette Ronalds, and Heidi is here from Oceanside, CA.
Wow.
I love Oceanside. I'm overdue.
I'm on this thing, or is it a surprise?
Pardon me?
Do people know I'm here, or is it? Am I in the thumbnail, or is it a surprise?
No, it's a surprise.
Oh, okay. All
but
right.
I have a feeling. There's always a grapevine because, as they say, it's always something. It's always something. So it's always something is here. What I wanted to do, what are you
talking about, Jeff? What's going on? Why am I here?
Well, I'm going to tell you why you're here.
All
I'm
right.
going to tell you why you were summoned. I always encourage Scientology watchers, researchers, exes, anyone to do some what I call dumpster diving, and that's to go to Scientology's own websites. It's dumpster diving. You're going to get dirty. It's going to go through trash, lies, and filth, garbage, dog shit, whatever. But you've got to go on their sites. And I do that. I've been doing it forever because that's where you're going to see what they're lying about. And you're also going to see their points of tension in their psyche. SPT Never Ends said she thought she was watching a rerun at first. Rerun.
Come on, man. He's got the Hawaiian shirt on with the NASA hat. I'm wearing a t-shirt. It's
anyway. So you have to do dumpster diving. So I had something we were talking about. Let me get my special briefcase.
Wow, that's like a true 1970s.
Oh, it's
Boss Hog and attaché case right there.
This is the most deluxe.
I like it.
It's a power briefcase, and when I sometimes when I have to go into court or things and I wear suits, I bring it. But what we have in today, what we have in the special briefcase, Jamie, is we have a new book out called Child X, and I had it upside down. Child X by Jamie Mustard, who's live with me right now. Jamie, I got to tell you, I've been reading the book, Child X, The Memory of Slavery, Poverty, Celebrity, and Scientology. It is the world's first literary presentation. The writing's exquisite. And your writing is so good. I almost feel guilty for enjoying the quality of literature, but the horror. This is an amazing work you've done, and I've got into it, and I'm not going to do any giveaways, but I'm very proud to have it. And I think everyone should pre-order. It's available on Amazon, along with your illustrated graphic novel, which we'll show.
Okay, well, I wasn't thinking you were going to promote my stuff, but I appreciate it. Yeah,
brother, I got to promote you.
But I think what we're talking about is kind of germane to the book, right?
It is absolutely, because when we did our podcast yesterday on the tragic and untimely, deaths of Alexander Jensch and Johnny Lewis, it got me thinking. I'm gonna go to Scientology's websites and see what they have to say.
Okay.
About children in the Sea Org, and I don't want to give away anything about your book, but you use the term about the church. You call it the machine, which I think is an amazing term, the machine. And so we're gonna go on. I'm gonna read about what they say about children in Lafayette Ronald Hubbard's private navy, known as the Sea Org. And I want your comments, because this was astonishing to me. So I'm just going to jump right into it. I wanted to get you, who you were born into the machine, and we're going to share this.
And a machine it was. It was a machine.
Brutal. Okay, so now there's a website called Stand League. And this is began during Leah Remini's show, Scientology and the Aftermath. They created this propaganda site, Scientologists taking a stand against discrimination. And so this gets into their points of tension. This is what bothers them. So they put up these sites. For example, you'll see on the right-hand side, the Church of Scientology Rehabilitation Project Force, RPF, Truths and Misconceptions, Snow White program, the true story. The true story of Snow White is that Mary Sue Hubbard and 10 other top Scientologists signed a stipulation evidence, and Mary Sue Hubbard went to prison and became a non-person. We were talking about after Johnny Lewis's untimely death, he was made a non-person, as are so many people in Scientology, debunking the myth of religious brainwashing. Now, here they say, are young children permitted in the Sea organization? This is why I wanted you on. I asked you to come on at the last minute, and thank you for accommodating me. We go right there, and basically they give a history of the Sea Org. So it was founded in 1967. It was called the Sea Project originally. Lafayette Ronald Hubbard bought a fleet of crappy ships, which were filth.
Jalopy ships.
Yeah, he called it a flotilla. And so here's what he says. When the Sea Organization moved to land in 1976, it had no experience with children. So there weren't a lot of children on the ship, the Apollo. It says so 76 is what they're saying. Sea Organization, L. Ron Hubbard.
Well, first of all, I mean, can I comment already? There's already a lie there.
Please.
Okay. The Sea Project was started in 1966 in southern England, in West Sussex, England, in East Grinstead, at his manor that he had bought years earlier from the Maharaja of Jaipur. So they're saying 1976, like they just wiped out the first 10 years. I have a close friend.
No, let's go back.
Okay.
The Sea Organization, they're saying it's founded in 67. It's actually founded as the Sea Project.
No, but if you read on, my friend,
if you
read on, it says after 10 years of experience with children by 1986. That is a lie. Okay.
Thank you.
So it would have been 77. I had a friend that was his mother was kicked off the Apollo in 1968 because she was 8 months pregnant. So, we also know Hannah Whitfield's story of the kid put into the chain locker. So he was on the boat by 1967. Yes. So this right here is duplicitous because we're talking about 19 to 20 years of experience with kids, not 10 years. They're saying 10 years. It's not 10 years. It's 20 years. That's an easily observable fact.
Okay, this is why we dumpster dive. That's one of the first lies we see.
Okay. I mean,
So,
it's hilarious to me.
well, yeah, okay. So it's okay, after 10 years of experience with children, it's actually 20. By
Yeah.
1986, it had become apparent that the duties of a member of this organization were not compatible with raising children. Yeah, no shit, right?
Yeah. I
So
mean,
for
yeah. I'll
for
just be
example,
quiet until you ask me to comment. How about that? I'll just.
well, no, you jump in because you'll see things that I won't.
Okay.
That's why I need you.
Okay.
For example, a C organization member must be free to travel on short notice. That means laundering money, covering up the bodies, and sometimes for extended periods, which is not easily
Like
balanced.
my mother being on the hard labor camp for couple years of my childhood, her going to Florida and training for a year and a half, like, these where, I was in the dorms. I mean, it's such a, what did they say earlier? Like it wasn't compatible with them. What was the compatibility line? Compatible with raising children.
Yeah.
No, I mean, that is not true. The evidence will show that that they had warehoused these children into some of the most sickening animalized living conditions, with roaches, head lice, bed bugs, scabies, and lack of childcare, without bedding, without schooling, without teeth brushing, without bathing. It wasn't compatible for them to care for the future.
Yes. And I just dropped this link to the Stand League.
I mean, it's galling to me. And it's galling to me that they would try to present something that is so easily disprovable, with so many kids that were, I was on the business end of this lack of compatibility. Right. To describe my child torture as a lack of compatibility, that's rough.
Well, yeah, it's brutal. And this is why I wanted to bring you on as someone who grew up in it, to point out the lies. But this is what they published, and they gloss over so much. That's why my thumbnail was of hell, but in front was like a white picket fence. Like, no, this is like living in Santa Clarita in a 4-bedroom,
Okay,
2.5 bath.
The other thing that's hilarious here, I mean, it's hard to get through it.
Well, go ahead and read and give us comments.
Okay,
you take over.
Okay, this does not mean that an individual in any way no longer is a member of the church. The person would simply carry on as a Scientologist outside of the church, or of a staff position as a Sea Org member, with whatever their chosen career may be. So they leave if they have kids. This was the decision in 1986. They kicked my friends off the base, I think in 85 or 84. So this was already their solution on the ground. I mean, I came back from Oregon in 86. Their solution on the ground, my friends were living in the street, and they were told if they wouldn't sign the billion-year contract in 84, 85, they would have to leave. And I had friends living in that were homeless, living within a mile of that complex big blue building, the old hospital. And all my other friends, 14, 15 years old, huddled in apartments with jobs, trying to support themselves. 5 girls would get an apartment together. Dudes would get apartments together, trying to pay their rent. Okay. So that they left that part out. Okay.
So, Jamie, let me get this straight. So in 86, they issue a no children in the Sea Org policy.
But before that, they'd already kicked a bunch of kids out into the street.
So if you were a kid, you could join the Sea Org at 10 or 12.
The cutoff was 14 or 15 years old. In 84, 85, they told every kid that was either 14 or 15, sign the billion-year contract or get out.
So this is such an important data point, Jamie. It's why I appreciate you coming on. So there was really kind of a gun to your head. You can go live on the streets on your own. Fuck off. Get out of here.
It was shocking to me because I was coming back from Oregon
in
86, and I came back and all my friends were living on the street, trying to stay close to their parents within, a mile of the old hospital, the big blue old complex building. And I had one friend, I went to see him. He was living in a shack, like an old abandoned garage on Santa Monica and Edgemont. And it had a dirt floor, and there was an old rusted out 70s car with bed seats. And one of them slept in the back seat and the other one slept in the front seat. Okay. That guy, was one of my dearest friends, childhood friends. He was one of the kids that made that choice, chose to be homeless. He just died of a drug overdose in the last 4 years. So okay, all right. Lack of compatibility. All right.
So basically, if you don't join the Sea Org, you're thrown out into the streets.
It literally happened.
Yeah,
yeah.
And I want to share something else. We're going to share the actual policy letter.
And I got to tell you, I didn't interpret it that way at the time. Interpreted it that way at the time was, I love my friends. They were having these jobs, and we had no parental supervision. It was all we knew. I didn't think anything of it other than, well, that's weird that this guy's living on the street. But the ones that were living in apartments, there was a true brotherhood and sisterhood that we had, almost like we had survived a war together.
Yeah. A fellowship of suffering.
Yeah.
And this is the, I have the policy up. This is the policy of no children. This is flag order. It's 3905-1.
Well, that's data.
Yeah. This is the, flag order 3905, and this is just the -1 update. But basically, this is explaining it. And why don't you read the first 3-4 paragraphs? Because no.
Okay. All right. I'll read it.
Yeah.
I just hate that word. I got to say it over again. So when I say it, I have to say it. I have to distort it to make come out of my mouth.
You can call Sea Org whatever you want.
Okay, well, his language is so ugly, and the worst part of growing up in this thing was being put into a pressure cooker where you have to believe he's the greatest writer that ever lived.
Yeah.
While he's a really shitty fucking writer. Okay.
True.
And so the word org has always reminded me of the word loogie. So I'll read the first 4 paragraphs if I can say sea loogie.
Please.
Okay. The sea loogie is the only group which is taking complete responsibility to handle the whole planet by grinding the child minds and the physical bodies of children into fucking dust. The ultimate responsibility to clear this planet lays with the Sea Org. And I'm adding a few words. And to make a save the world omelet, you might have to crack a few child skulls.
Wow.
This is a huge task and a very large responsibility. It requires complete dedication and a determination from its staff, which means sacrifice your fucking children. And watch them go through pain, suffering, medical neglect, lack of education, lack of them, and psychological torture, and fucking love it. That's what that means. The Sea Loogie is not set up to handle or take care of children. The Sea Loogie members getting children has resulted in unpractical burden on the Sea Loogie units and inhibited their efficiency. Now that's true. And I'm sorry if I'm swearing, Jeffrey. Tell me.
No, please go ahead.
Now that's true. There's a true statement. We were not practical to that shell game. Okay. We got in the way of, if you delivered machine counseling like my mother did, that's their biggest moneymaker. If she's coming and seeing me and seeing that I'm getting showered, educated, have underwear, she's not in the chair making money. So that's true.
Yeah.
No Sea Loogie installation has the job of making future Sea Loogie members for 20 years from now. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, that statement, at least the Mormons knew, the Mormons knew, you can't, if you don't have kids, you can't grow it. If they had not done that and just invested in the kids, the quote religion would be 50 times the size now.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. So they just cut off their nose despite their face. I mean, all major religions grow through progeny. It's just kind of unbelievable. The truth of this statement, what's going on here, is the children were put in unbearable, animalistic living conditions that are beyond comprehension. And most people, when I tell them about it, they're like, that doesn't even make any sense. Why would somebody go through the trouble to treat kids? It seems like you'd be going out of your way to do that. And yeah, no, they looked at the kids as futures of livestock that would be useful to them in 12 to 14 years. Okay. So the animalistic environment was a result of economic practicality. You're not going to if you're going to grow a pig and slaughter it in 10 years and make money, you're not going to put it up in the Ritz-Carlton. You're going to put it up in a pig pen and give it the least resources available to you, grow it so that it has value. And that is why it was that way. How can we and that's why we were living in these, I don't want to call it a slum because I don't want to insult slums. It was below third world conditions with mice, lice, rabies, roaches, the side of, massive roaches, lack of air conditioning, bunk stack 3 high, disease ran rampant. And then we were, if our rooms got too dirty and we were never taught to clean, they put a sign on the door that said pig's room. Wow. And called us piggies. It's just unbelievable. So so that's the reality of why they've canceled it. They were abusing us, and the kids that were growing out of being toddlers and 7-year-olds into being teenagers were going crazy. Okay, and so that's why they actually did it.
So here's the order. Therefore, Sea Org members who have new children will not be allowed to remain on duty in Sea Org units. Okay, here's what strikes me about reading this, Jamie. The chilling language is, listen to the Orwellian doublespeak. It's brutal. The Sea Org is not set up to handle or take care of children. Well, that was not, Hubbard didn't say that at the beginning, right?
No, I mean, the reality is you have to listen, the money tells the truth.
Yeah, okay? Exactly.
Hubbard was willing to spend enough money to have us live in a broken down, out of code tenement. So why did he buy the Melrose building, which was dedicated to the care of children in a very poor way, if that wasn't the plan?
Yeah, exactly. And then look at his language here. He says, Sea Org members getting children, that means getting pregnant, has resulted in unpractical burden. The language he uses here is something that almost speaks to euthanasia.
That's what it felt like. And if you were me and you grew up in that thing, that when I grew up in it, and you see how many friends that I've lost to, drug addiction or suicide, what that statement means, is we are grinding. We are becoming aware that we are grinding these physical children and their minds into dust with doctrine and lack of care. One caretaker they called them nannies of all things, to 40 kids. And the other thing is because the movement is an economic machine. Okay. Yeah. Anybody that was reasonably intelligent, they wanted on jobs that could produce cash. Okay. And again, there's a guy, some people are going to hate that I say this, and I apologize, but this isn't universally true. There were smart people in the estates units. Okay. Not all of them were idiots.
No. What are the estates units?
They do the physical upkeep of the buildings, clean the, service the buildings, clean the buildings. And So there were occasionally smart people in there, but the reality is it's an economic machine. So you're going to put what you think are your dumbest, useless members onto the fixing and the cleaning and then if you had members that were even dumber and more useless than the ones that could do the fixing and the cleaning, then you sent them into the child care organization. So they put the worst, most abusive, crazy people that could not be tolerated within an organization, within a group that was trying to make money, more money. The whole purpose is to make money. You quoted that the other day. That's who became the quote nannies. Was there an occasional good person? Of course there was. Yeah. But generally, that's true. There was a guy that commented on some site that I was told about that I just quote took a shit when I told the truth about my story for the first time. That I just took a shit. That's his words. No, on all the the estate staff and child care staff from that era, from the late 70s and 80s, and I would like to correct him. I did not, and I'm sorry for I'm quoting him. I did not take a shit on them. Okay, I spewed diarrhea in their face, and then I vomited on them, and then I peed on them, because I think that was a pretty generous, graceful way for me to walk away, considering the violations of my physical form and the violations of my mind. And when I say the violations of my mind, I'm not talking about the general doctrine that can be argued whether it's good or bad. When I talk about the violations of my mind, I'm speaking very specifically to human emotion being unacceptable. Me at 4 years old being forced to act as an adult. And if I didn't act as an adult, there would be consequences. Being told that I was a trillion-year-old fallen god and I'd lived billions of lives, and that's why I just had to effing remember, and then I could and contribute. Being alienated from my parents and told that my suffering was my part in saving the planet. Literally, in those words. My mother said to me, "You need to remain here and bear it so that we can save the planet."
Well, let me jump in, because Alice has a question to that point, and I think this needs to be nuanced. Can you?
Well, I mean, listen. No, this is the irony and idiocy of the whole thing. The entire movement is set up based on this book called Diuretics from 1950, crackerjack, pop BS philosophy a la objectivism by Ayn Rand. Okay, both crackerjack narcissistic drivel, and the whole premise is that psychological and physical pain are recorded in your unconscious and are responsible for all your neuroses and imperfections as you get older as an adult. That's the whole premise. And the whole premise of all the therapy is is a version of, you can even compare it to EMDR now, which is evidence-backed. So there was something to it. Freud called it his abreaction therapy.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, and you would basically relive these painful incidents and then discharge the emotion. This is the idea. Now, there's truth in this. EMDR is studied and evidence-backed, and that's.
Well, let me jump in here. In the book I'm working on Hubbard's Infernal Machine.
Yeah.
Carl Jung used a galvanometer in the 1920s.
Yeah.
He published an extensive work on it, and so. But the point is.
Here's the point. Here's the point.
Yeah,
the point is this. The point that Avant Alice asked is, was it their philosophy to foster suffering? No. In the philosophy, here's the thing that made it amazing. In the philosophy of the book Diuretics, it's all about the removal of pain. If you look at the doctrine of the inner paramilitary group, the Silugi, there's all of these toxic, all of these policies that all they do is inflict pain. They inflict psychological and physical pain. So, if you were put on the re-education camp and you had to run everywhere for years, be away from your family, they have a thing called a head on a pike.
Correct.
They have a policy called "Why Executives Yell."
Really?
Yeah. And then what my favorite one, "Too gruesome to confront."
Yeah.
Right. So if you look at the policies of what came right after diuretics, Scientology, these policies are pain infliction devices. And this is just the stupidity of the whole thing. You create this thing that you say is for the removal of pain. And then you set up an institution that has all these policies that inflict pain. There was obviously whoever was at the root of that had a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. Yeah.
Yeah, to say the least. Let's go back to share this because I wanted to get into something that was pretty horrific. We're going to go back to the Stand League website, and this is what struck me. So in 1986, the policy was established that the Sea Org couples desiring to have children would do so outside the Sea Organization. That's true and is not true. And what I wanted to get in, Jamie, so you could leave the Sea Org and go to a failing, what was it, Class 5 organization?
Yeah.
No, how bad?
I mean, it was. Listen, they didn't change anything for the kids. Okay, yeah. What happens here is you go on staff at one of these outer institutions.
So if you're in the Sea Org, just so
and you have a kid and you don't want to have an abortion because eventually they set up a mass abortion machine. We all know about that.
Yeah.
Then you go out to this lower organization that's run by staff members that are not in the inner paramilitary. They don't pay you, so you have to have a side hustle. Yeah. So between not making any money for them and having the side hustle, you never see your kids, and your kid ends up at a daycare run by members of this thing. Yeah. And they have the same thing: trillion-year-old fallen god. This lifetime doesn't matter that much because we're trying to save the world. No emotion. And they're probably having these kids do what I did, which is drills that systematically remove empathy and groom you for being easily controlled. Yes. Right? We do these drills from 4 years old where you're forced to stare at somebody, and I think they changed it when I got older. When I was a kid, you couldn't blink for 2 hours. And you fail. And so they're getting you accustomed to having the body be exceedingly uncomfortable, and then telling you that you need to deny the body and that you're going to have some transcendental experience if you just deny the body and sit there. But what they're really doing to you is conditioning you to not listen to the body. The body, the nervous system tells us when something is wrong. So there's physiology here, and but yeah. So sorry, I don't know how much more we want to do this. But, yeah.
Well, no, just a couple things is that when if you wanted to, if a Sea Org couple wanted to keep their child, here's what's brutal about it: they were thrown out to a lower org they couldn't make any money, so they had to have a side job, as you say. It's called moonlighting in Scientology. Hubbard didn't like you moonlighting. Hubbard wrote a really interesting,
but there was no living wage. So,
but Hubbard wrote a really fucked up policy, and I have it. I can pull it up. He said that it would be okay under certain conditions for Sea Org members to take welfare, to just go live off taxpayer dollars.
Yeah. Listen, another thing.
And so that became institutionalized. Whenever a Sea Org member had an injury, they would go to county.
Even worse, like there's no medical care unless you get ill. Yeah.
No.
Of course. Yeah. All medical was they have tax exempt status, and then they steal from the state because they force the member to go to the county hospital where they have to accept you.
Yes. And they even coach you on how to be a transient, how to present yourself as a transient.
So they don't pay any taxes, and then they take free medical care from the state at the county hospital.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anybody's ever gone to an emergency room or gone for care at a county hospital, but it's not the best medical care. And typically you end up there when it's already too late because you believe that doing the counseling, if you do the counseling, all disease comes from these past memories of pain and unconsciousness, either psychically or physically. So if you do the counseling, you can't get sick, you can't get cancer, you can't get ill. So if people do get cancer or do get sick, the prescription is the counseling. So rather than going and getting blood work done and getting a diagnosis, you're going and you're doing this counseling. So that by the time you do end up at county, the situation has,
county is so bad. In the 1990s, I pulled a friend out of a campground in Bouquet Canyon where he had a gun and he wanted to unalive himself. And the police came and they put him in a county facility in Sylmar.
Yeah.
On a 5150.
Yeah,
and
that's where my father. That's where my father went before he died.
Look, I had to go see this guy, and he was dying, alcohol, serious, and I could, that organ failure smell, and it was brutal. It was just brutal, and it just you mentioning, and that's where you live at. So the other policy, and I interviewed Jackson about it. And I actually try to get numbers. If you wanted to stay in, you would get an abortion, a forced abortion, and that's one thing that got the Catholic Church's attention onto Scientology. But for probably 20 years, there were forced abortions, and I got Jackson to talk about what were the number of vans.
What's astonishing about that is they could have.
Well, no, let me finish the statement. Okay. When I was talking to Jackson.
Yeah.
And it's on a podcast. They actually had to know where all the places you can get an abortion were. So they had to diversify or spread their risks so that one center that gave abortions wouldn't notice too many Sea Org vans.
They had to spread the abortions out so that they didn't look too thick.
Yeah, sometimes it was, many women a week, minivans, more than a dozen, more than 10, more than, it was van loads of women at the peak. And so the alternative was to and I'm just saying this, their alternative is you don't have any choice. You can either go to a downstat non-producing org, where you're going to live in hell and be poor, and you're not going to have enough money to feed your child, or you can have an abortion and stay in. And they often, the focus in the Sea Org, as I understand it from talking to Sea Org members, was to try to talk women into having abortions because they didn't even want to deal with children at class 5 orgs.
Yeah,
they would try to convince you it was for the greater good.
Yeah.
And going back to that question, the greater good excused all kinds of hellish things.
It's the exact same thing as communism. Sacrifice the individual for the good of the state. Same thing.
I'm going to go back on to something, and I'm going to highlight it.
Okay.
And this is what they say about how they're going to try to answer your claims of what happened. So you can see this for Sea Org members. I'll read it. You comment. For Sea Organization members who had children before the policy of the religious order changed in 1986, school facilities were built to properly educate and provide for the children. Okay. By way of, yeah. Okay. Do you want to comment or want me to finish?
Yeah, it's hard to read because
Well, this is their lie. This is the lie.
I know, I get it, but for people listening to this, it's.
And I'm sorry to put you through it. I'm just saying this is their lie that they're going to present to the public.
Okay. There's two parts here.
Break it down.
I don't want to go on with this too much longer, Jeffrey. We can do another one where I prepare myself. Yeah. Okay. I meditate beforehand. But so there's two things.
We'll cut it after this paragraph.
Okay. To put a cap on the abortion question, they have free labor. So for a few $100s a week, they could have easily put a person on they wouldn't even have to be a brilliant person on a job and administered and educated people in birth control that wanted to stay. And that would have created a situation where there wasn't a mass abortion machine psychologically destroying young girls who weren't often exposed to the world enough to even understand what they were doing. Okay. Because it was a lot of the young girls that this was happening to. All right. But they didn't, when they cut off kids, it didn't occur, maybe we should provide birth control and have a birth control unit. Nope. It was, we're just cutting out kids, and we're going to just, women are now getting pregnant in masses. Well, let's just hack them up. Okay. It's unbelievable. But the other thing that I would say in terms of what you just played me, if you'd put it back up on the screen.
Yeah, let me get it back up. There it is.
I'll just comment on this. Properly educate the children. No, I mean, you find me a kid that was an ESCO kid before 1986 or after 1986 that has a high school diploma or went to school. I mean, I got lucky, but it's just, it's not true. There was a place across from Bridge for many years from one of the hospital buildings that turned into their publications arm. I hate even saying the name of it because it had a fancy name, but it was where it was a little annex where they kept all the kids. It was called the ATA. I'm not going to give it its full name because I feel like it makes it sound like something that it isn't. And it was basically an out of code office building with tile coming up, a dirt patch in the back, and an exposed to the sun cement fenced in parking lot where we played, and we lingered. There was no education there. And it's just, it's kind of when you've lived through something where there was no education, and then they sent all these kids off to the ranch where they didn't see their parents, and then there was abuse issues there. Okay, now say there wasn't even any abuse. Say that, and there was. Okay, in terms of the emotion, the indoctrination, and the lack of. You would say they would, if you got hurt, they might say knock off the HENR, or which means human emotion reaction was frowned upon. That's abuse. Or they would say stop dramatizing. In other words, you're not really upset at 5 years old because you never see your parents and you're hurt, but you're upset because you are triggered from a past life. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's
Okay, and then lastly, knock off the bank or the reaction. This is the stuff. Like for a child not seeing their parents, to be told they're not allowed to experience emotion, this is psychologically crushing. This is going to create a sociopath.
Yeah,
it's going to create somebody that is not going to be able to interact and function with the world. And even if that wasn't occurring, and we were and there was no education at any of these places. So that's just a flat out lie. I don't even know how to address it. It's ridiculous. Okay. You show me, Jason McGay once famously said, you show me a mother effing clear.
Yeah.
Okay. You show me a mother effing educated, SO kid. Show me one.
Yeah.
Produce one of these kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. But even if that abuse wasn't this psychologically mind atomizing way of treating children didn't exist, and you were just away from your parents, that is enough. Children need love. They need human touch. They need to be nurtured, right? This is like being, that's the kind of love and attention you would get in a crack house. Right. So it's preposterous. And the thing is, Jeffrey, believe it or not, I don't have an axe to grind against these guys. I'm not trying to, quote, expose them. I'm not trying to take them down. That's not where my mind is. My mind is, I want someone to say what happened on 4 continents over 40 years. And I want it to be known. I don't, in my mind, and I know you're going to think I'm crazy and naive, like it doesn't have to be like this where they have this ridiculous stuff where they say these things. Like they could take some accountability and apologize.
Yeah, they could.
Yeah, I would forgive them. I'll move on, and why not apologize? Why not stop gaslighting us and say you're sorry? They have billions of dollars. Set up an educational fund for kids to apply for grants and small business loans to fix their lives.
You know,
Right.
that's a terrific idea because that's something that they could actually do. Now, I'm going to post in support of your book, Child X. I'll be supporting a copy, a copy of the Stanley page where they lie, and a copy on my blog. And this is where my blog. I want to be a public service. I want to publish the No Children in Sea Org flag order, and that way we have evidence when they try to come against you. There's evidence that no, this really went on. And they've been trying to whitewash this. They've been trying to lie about it. This whole Stanley site is a complete lie. They're saying what actually, and I think maybe you said this.
Yeah.
They're trying to get you to believe that what you saw, you didn't see. What you saw, you didn't see.
Yeah. And that's why,
And
yeah. I mean, and
so,
yeah.
So they're saying what you lived through, you didn't actually live through.
Yeah, and it's really brutal because not only do you live through this thing and you lose so many of your peers, and you're still losing your peers. Like, people act like it's in your past. No, it's in my present. I'm still losing people.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know my mother. I don't know my brothers. Right. I'm closest to my homeless brother in New York who grew up in the shadow of this thing. Right.
Yeah.
And again, I can forgive. I forgive you. But people keep commenting to me as they hear more and more of my story, this first generation story of childcare. How are you alive?
Yeah.
And so you survive that, and then you become an adult and you want to process what happened to you. But like, to your point, Jeffrey, all they say is this never happened to you. And that it's a re-victimization of a magnitude that is hard to imagine. Like, it's hard to imagine that they think that is going to make the problem go away. What that's going to do is make these kids that survived it rage.
Yeah.
Rage. They're going to create. And so, yeah, it's unbelievable, that you would survive something like that. Then they come out and attack you and slander you for sharing your story. Again, there's all sorts of stuff that occurs on YouTube where people are saying they're trying to expose it and take it down and whatever. That's never been where I'm coming from. I'm not saying it doesn't need to be done, but it's not where I'm coming from. You can do what you want. I can do what I want. What I'm coming from is I want to own my story. I don't believe you can own your life if you don't own your story. And I've spent most of my life, I'm now middle-aged, not in complete denial of my story. And it's taken a toll on me. So yeah. And the scariest thing that's occurring, and next time I should probably prep for this, and I probably don't want to do this much longer, Jeffrey, but
no, we can wind it up.
The scariest thing of all of it is, as I'm talking to media and reporters, for my work, that's coming out, and I'm talking about the lost children, and I'm talking to ex-members that were there that were there in the 70s and 80s, and I'm talking to the media. One for one, they're saying to me that they had no idea this went on. And it's crazy to me because when I was writing this book, I was like, oh, this has been told. Why am I saying anything new? But I don't think people knew about this. And it's shocking to me. I mean, our conversations, you've expressed that you didn't know about this.
Yeah, I didn't. There's a lot I did not know about at all.
Lori Magoo, OG, left a long comment on a video that I did saying that she didn't know about this. Yeah.
You know what? A lot of people didn't. And there was a focus on money, on Hubbard, and a lot of other things. And there was a Scientology hides its deviance, hides its darkness and evil. And it's also sometimes very hard for people to confront that they were part of that killing machine.
Yeah. And, Jeffrey, maybe you should know what would be really cool on this one. I mean, I really appreciate you putting my books, but, there's also a graphic novel, which is a future adjacent sci-fi version of my life coming out in early October. I think that is another existential way of experiencing this story that is beautiful. And, I would like maybe you to.
Let me share that because it may not be as we talked about, your novel is Hybrid right here.
Yeah, that's my graphic novel.
You're telling the same story, and it might not be as triggering initially. I'm looking forward to reading it, but you're telling the same story in your graphic novel.
Yeah, and so I think that these two books. Yeah, I mean, I did. Yeah, but I'm not. It's fictional, so there's no mention of the movement. There's no mention of everything's, a future adjacent Los Angeles. All the names have been changed, even the name of Los Angeles, even the name of Hollywood.
Yeah.
And there's magic in it, but there's not one scene that's in it that also isn't in Child X, because I was never going to write Child X. I was trying to master my story by writing it as a sci-fi graphic novel. So it's very beautiful. I had it. It was painted, or the pictures were made through my art direction in a small stone town in southern Italy, and it's a story told through staggeringly beautiful paintings that are just I don't know.
And that's art as therapy.
Yeah. So
and then you do this beautiful thing that talks about the terror, and then you're able to actually talk about it, and I think we'll wind it down. I appreciate you coming on, because I know that's very stressful for you.
Yeah, I'm tired. I hope I wasn't a bummer.
No. I'm trying to be sensitive, because I did call you at the last minute, but I just wanted to make the audience aware that Scientology will lie about Jamie Mustard's book and the suffering, and they have lied about the suffering of all Seor kids and all children. When Alexander Jenge died, they lied about his death. They immediately called him a drug addict, Jamie. He died because his goddamn in-laws, who are OTs, wouldn't take him to urgent care. They let him lay in a bed and die of a high fever with methadone, and they didn't care enough. And immediately, this is like getting my blood boiling. Immediately, they start saying he's a drug addict. That's what they put out, that he's a drug addict. Now, in their official things,
can you imagine, with all the bad things that the Catholic Church has done, can you imagine a kid dies, a Catholic boy dies, and then they start smearing him?
But Ed Winter, the coroner, the only good person in that story, he handled the celebrity deaths, and I wanted to just cover a point that I missed yesterday when we talked about Alexander and Johnny. Alexander's death was initially treated as a homicide, because you don't have a 26-year-old young person dead under mysterious circumstances. That's why it was treated as a homicide. There was an active homicide investigation.
Okay.
Karen and I didn't know if he'd been murdered. He's the president of the Church of Scientology International Hebrew Jensh. There could be reasons he could have been murdered.
Yeah.
But we didn't know. But the point
is, I think that my friend that died 4 years ago was drug overdose that I grew up with at those buildings. He was murdered. There was a woman the daughter of a founding Sea Project member who was there in the original meeting in England in 1966, the first gathering. That guy had a daughter living in Portland. She took her own life, leaving 2 children 3-4 years ago. I believe she was murdered. All of these things were so easily preventable, and that's what is, if there wasn't this view of Alexander that when you're sick, and this is the key part here, and then we gotta wrap it. The key part here that people need to understand is that when Alexander got sick, there was training that you go through, if you remember, where he was instantly dehumanized.
Yeah.
He was no longer a person the minute he got sick. When you get sick in this movement, you are labeled with 2 things. One is your PTS, you're a potential trouble source. It means the only reason you get sick is you're connected to an evil person. So there's a sick person, I'm instantly going, oh, he's connected to evil. I'm instantly stigmatizing that person. The other thing I'm thinking is the only reason something bad happens to you is because you pull it in. This is standard doctrine from Lafayette Ronald, as Menorah so eloquently called him today. And so these people that were caring for him were trained to look at him like an animal or a rat the minute he got sick. if they saw him as a person, like typically every other group on the planet, when someone gets sick, it's like, okay, let's be a little kinder and a little softer to this person. Let's show them some empathy. But no, you have to really, really, really accept, Jeffrey, that when his in-laws were looking at him, they were looking at him as a POS, degraded being, connected to evil, that had committed evil acts, and therefore caused himself to get sick. And if they did not have those thoughts in their head, they would have been looking at him every day, and he would have been at the emergency room 2 days before he was ever in a stage of having a high fever that would kill him. And so you have to look at the ideology of how they're viewing him that led to the situation leading to his death.
And Jamie, I appreciate you through your pain, and we're going to wind it up now, sharing that, because it's just hard for me to understand. I appreciate what you're saying. I'm glad you came on the show. So let's just end it here, because it has been very intense for you. It's
and I think we should.
Me.
I'm happy to do a longer 2 or 3 hour one of these, but I just need to mentally prepare.
I understand. I understand, but I just wanted to show some evidence, and we'll pick it up. So thank you for coming on the show.
You got it. And if there's anybody out there that's ever been affiliated with this thing that wants to say that what I just said about the stigmatization of sick people isn't true, come forward. No one will come forward. It's absolutely set doctrine. Okay.
It is. So Jamie Mustard, thank you for being on the Scientology Money Project on YouTube, and we will see you next time.